What is happening, everybody? Max here. We're back at the vise and we're doing another fly tying tutorial. Today we're going to be tying one of my more productive fall steelhead streamers for this year, and we are kind of dubbing this the egg-sucking nut, kind of a egg-sucking circus peanut type of variant. So we're going to go ahead and dive right into it. So first we're going to start off with a TP605 number 2. We're going to go ahead and pop that into the vise. And we are going to lay down a thread base. And I'm going to stop my thread kind of roughly at about the hook point of our number 2 TP605. So next we're going to make our tail. And we've got olive brown marabou quills, and I grabbed 2 out of here. And I'm just going to kind of marry these 2 feathers together. I'm just going to pull out the tips so we don't have any flat edges on our tail. We're going to get the tails to the same length roughly. And we're going to measure this out roughly about the length of our number 2 hook. Tie it in, trim. Now I'm cutting this a little bit longer so I have a more uniform body instead of a flat cut edge right there. We got our tail in. Now with this being a streamer for migratory fish, we can always add flash in here. This specific one, I don't think I'm gonna add any flash into, but the 2 flashaboos that I love for this fly is the speckled gold and copper flashaboo. Feel like you can't really have enough gold and copper flashaboo for migratory fish, but like I said, for simplicity purposes, we're just gonna keep this one bare. But I always like adding some sort of gold or copper flashaboo on my tail. So next, we are gonna add the Fulling Mill Streamer Straggle in metallic. It's jumbo, and this is very comparable to UV Polar Chenille, but this is a Fulling Mill product, and this one is in olive and copper. We're just going to tie our chenille in, and we're going to wrap that forward towards the front. Now I'm not doing tight wraps, I'm doing kind of loose wide wraps on here, and I'm only going to do about 3 to 4 wraps of our chenille here. Now one thing I also like to do to help the taper of my fly is I'm going to pull out all the fibers of that chenille that I just laid down, and I'm going to go ahead and trim this back kind of about halfway or so, just to help out on our taper to our fly. Perfect. So next we're going to do some barred schlappen and olive. Can either be regular olive, barred olive, doesn't necessarily matter. And I'm always looking for a thinner schlappen feather for our first side here. Now I'm going to tie this in tip first. And one little trick that I like to do to help get my rubber legs to prop out on this fly is that I'm going to give my schlappen about 2 to 3 turns. And again, this is going to help kind of prop out our rubber legs that we are going to add in. So I'm going to do about 3 to 4 wraps of our schlappen. I'm going to tie it off, but I'm not going to trim this. So I'm just going to leave our schlappen feather on here. I'm going to grab some rubber legs. Dealer's choice on this, always trying to keep it in like a natural olive cream, tan, brown kind of color. These are triple barred heavy duty silicone legs in bone, brown, and olive. Kind of a mouthful, but these have a really cool barred aspect to them. Again, it's always dealer's choice on rubber legs, but I think that these ones have a really cool appearance to them, so we're tying them in. Oops. So I have 2 of them on the side, and I'm going to tie 2, put this back in here. So I'm going to tie 2 on the side. Going straight down the side of the fly. I'm gonna pull my other two to the other side of the fly, let those hang, and then I'm gonna continue to wrap my schlop and feather in front of our rubber legs here. Like I said, this just kind of helps prop those rubber legs out from our fly. I'm gonna do about 3 to 4 wraps of my schlop in here. And I'm gonna tie this off. And we're gonna trim our rubber legs about halfway back, kind of going into our marabou feather, slightly longer than our schloppin. I'm just gonna kind of rotate this just to get them evenly on both sides. And there is the first half to our fly. So next we're gonna grab a TP605 number 1. And we're gonna pop her in the vise. And I'm gonna go back down the bend of the hook ever so slightly, which will help out with our mono connection here. And I'm just going back and forth along the shank just to give the mono something to bite into. So next we're just gonna take some lead eyes. These just happen to be small lead eyes. Dealer's choice on what weighting system you wanna use. I generally find that I'm using small lead eyes, brass eyes, or even bead chain eyes nowadays, just with how low our water levels have been. Usually going a little bit lighter than heavier, but again, dealer's choice on weighting system. Now I'm gonna tie these eyes about 2 hook eyes back, and giving myself a little bit of real estate in the front for our final material. And I'm just cross wrapping, figure eighting my eyes on here. So we got our eyes. Next, we're just gonna take some mono. This happens to be 25-pound Maxima. I always like keeping it stiffer mono, heavier than what my leader is going to be. So we're just gonna take a small little piece of 25-pound, 30-pound, 40-pound, whatever everybody's got. Just a nice stiff piece of mono. And I'm gonna tie in one side on one end of my fly. Now we're just gonna take some 6mm beads. These happen to be 3D beads from Hairline. They're in black. We can run olive, white, red. Doesn't really matter. And I'm gonna put 2 of those beads on. And then I'm gonna grab the first section of my fly. Now the goal with these connections is to get both of our flies here going in a uniform manner, straight up and down. And I'm gonna kind of rotate my mono around my hook just to get that teardrop straight up and down shape. And I'm gonna pull some of this tag end in, just creating a very small teardrop shape in the rear of my fly. Both hooks are facing straight up and down, so we know that we are in the money for that. And I'm just gonna wrap my thread forward, folding my mono back over itself, which is our security point here. Trim my tag ends, and I'm just gonna lash down that mono connection. So we're gonna go back to our streamer straggle chenille here from Fulling Mill in copper olive, which is the best color that has ever been made. And just like before, we're gonna do kind of loose wraps forward. 2, 3, 4, 5. We're gonna do about 6 to 7 wraps on this one here. Tie our material down. And I always just kind of like to pick this stuff out. You can use a wire brush as well, but we just kind of want to pick some of those fibers back out. Perfect. So next we're gonna take a brush. Now this is the Senyo's chromatic brush in 3-inch, and this happens to be the pale bronze color. Craft fur brushes work as well for this, but I really like our chromatic brushes. It's a stiffer brush, helps create a bigger shoulder on this fly. And I always like to keep this again in similar earth tones to what we're tying. This one happens to be kind of like a lighter olive colored brush. Tie our brush in. Now with it being a stiffer brush, we don't have to do very many wraps on here. So I'm just gonna fold my materials back, and I'm gonna do about 4 or so wraps on here. We got 1, 2. Now one tip that I can give is anytime we're using synthetics and brushes, we want to pick out our brush. So I can see I just threw my Velcro brush down, so I'm just gonna use a little pick here. I got 3. And I've got my 4th wrap in. I'm just gonna give it another half wrap just to finish it out. Tie off our material. Now one thing with these brushes is we can definitely cut the wire with scissors. It's gonna eat at your scissors and they're gonna go dull very quickly. So if we need to use our scissors, we're gonna go deep into the scissors to use this to cut our brush. Highly recommend just getting some wire cutters. Makes life a lot easier. Cut our brush back. And we're gonna tie down that exposed wire so it does not cut our thread. And then we're just gonna pick out that brush. So for me personally, this brush is just slightly too long for my preference. As you can see, it's going almost all the way back into our rear section of our fly. And I just want to shorten that up to about our connection point here. So it's going to be right here, kind of where our mono loop is. I never want to cut this brush and get a flat edge. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull my fibers towards the front of the fly, and I'm just going to kind of rip these guard hairs, kind of the ends of this brush back out. And I'm looking to get this to a length just about to my mono connection. So here I have just a little bit too much still, and I'm just gonna rip a little bit more of these off. And now we have our brush going to our mono connection. So that looks good. So for the next step, we're just gonna grab our rubber legs again. Again, these are the triple barred heavy duty silicone legs from Hairline in bone brown and olive. And just like our first section, we're gonna tie 2 on one side of the fly, fold them over, we're gonna tie 2 on the other. And I wanna trim these legs to the end of my brush. So our legs are gonna be cut right at the end of that chromatic brush. That looks good to me. Now we're gonna go back to our olive barred schlappen, tying it in tips first. And this is just gonna add a small collar onto here, add a little bit of a mottled effect to it, a few different tones. We're just gonna do about 4 to 5 wraps of our schlappen here. So we got 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna do about 4.5 on this one. Tie our schlappen down. I'm just gonna go through and kind of pick some more of this brush out. Do not want any of this stuff matted down. Perfect. So for our last and final step, we're going to be using the Fulling Mill Shimmer Chenille in medium. This is very similar to a cactus chenille. We just want some shorter fibers here, and this is going to create our egg head to this. Ice dubbing will work, cactus chenille, Estes, but I really like this shimmer chenille from Fulling Mill. And this is in orange, obviously, for it being an egg-sucking kind of style thing, pattern, whatever you want to call it. So I'm just going to rip off a little bit of this material, exposing the braided core to this chenille, and I'm going to tie this in behind our lead eyes, advancing my thread towards the front of our fly. Now I'm going to do one full wrap behind the eyes. I'm going to come underneath my lead eyes. I'm going to go around the eye, back figure 8 over top, around my eyes again, and I'm going to do one wrap in front, 2 wraps in front, and probably about another half wrap just to finish this off. We're going to grab our material, tie it down, trim the excess. And we are going to whip finish our fly. And again, one thing I always like to do is just kind of go through and pick some of this stuff out so our materials aren't matted down on each other. A wire brush, this little bodkin picking tool, the end of your whip finisher, either one will work. And a little flick just to kind of give us a little bit of body showing. And that right there is arguably my most productive fall stripped fly for steelhead. Kind of an egg-sucking, peanut-looking thing. We'll tie these in olive, tans, browns, black and copper is a fantastic one. Always love using orange for my head, but we'll vary it between pink, chartreuse, orange, maybe an olive or a tan kind of chenille on the front. And that's the beautiful thing about this pattern. Colors are easily substituted, materials are easily substituted. But yeah, this is our kind of egg-sucking, nut-looking thing. And this was one of our best producing fall steelhead flies on the strip for us this year. If anybody wants any one of these materials, needs to know anything more about the patterns, what we're doing, how we're doing things, we can even ship this whole kit and caboodle to everybody out there. Just give us a call here in the shop or swing on through and see what we have to offer here in Ada, Michigan.